Okay, actual main Battle of Plataea. We'll learn about the event of this very decisive battle, and to understand what a close run thing it was. This is quite a long lesson and it's quite detailed. This battle is quite well documented, so we've got a lot of details. It goes back and forth and it takes place over quite a few days, so bear with me. Phase 1. As we ended the last lesson, the armies are lined up something like this. The Greeks on the higher ground, the Persians on the plains, and neither side really knowing what to do next. Nobody wants to go and fight on the other side's territory. So phase 1, first few days, nothing happens, and then Mardonius sends various cavalry around to try and probe the Greeks, trying to find a weak point. At one point, it's gone quite badly for the Greeks, and they call up their what few archers they've got, and this guy here, Mecistius, who is a Persian commander of cavalry, is killed in this little skirmish. His body is then stripped and his body paraded amongst the Greeks, which they love. But it does mean the Greeks do something they perhaps shouldn't. The Greeks advance to try and tempt the Persians up. So having had their little victory here with killing Mecistius, they advance. They're still on the highlands, on the high ground, but they advanced further. And this, you will see in a little bit, could perhaps be a bit of a mistake. So for the next week or so, nothing much happens except that the Persians increasingly are sending their cavalry around the edges. They're sending it around the edges of the Greeks, just pecking away, doing some damage, shooting off arrows into them. It's quite a long process. Okay. So what happens is they send these guys around here. They swarm around them. Not really killing that many people, but certainly doing quite a lot of damage. And then we think, according to according to the details we've got, they ambush a supply column. So we go right here. They ambush a supply column. What happens is we think as Greek supplies come this way, Persian cavalry ambush them and wipe them out. So now the Greeks are running a little bit short of supplies. Yeah. Then it gets even worse because some other Persians around here find where the Greeks are getting their water supply from and they block that up. And now the Greeks are in real trouble. There's no food supplies coming through. If they have difficulty getting water, not impossible, but difficulty getting water, they're now in a very, very bad position. It's what's called the razor's edge. The Greeks are at this point quite close to defeat. It's getting really quite bad for them. They know as long as they stay in this formation, they've probably got nothing to fear from a direct Persian attack. But now they're starting to enter trouble with food and water. So the Greeks decide. Pausanias, who's a commander of the Spartan region, decides to retreat. He decides, what we're going to do is this. We're going to pull back further into the highlands where it's easier for us to get supplies, and we'll do it that way. Fall back, we'll fall back, we'll fall back. We're not going to retreat, we're not going to run away, we're going to fall back so it's easier for us to get supplies and we're not so badly attacked by the Persian cavalry. So they decide to withdraw. That's there. B. This withdrawal happens at night, and it gets very, very confused. The center group of Greeks, the allies, Corinthians, that like, they go back too far. They virtually run off. At the same time, amongst the Spartans on the right, there's dissension. You have the Spartan regent, Pausanias, here. He's ordered the Spartans to retreat. One of his guys, Amorphitatus, says, I'm not retreating, that's for cowards. At the same point, the Athenians turn up, a herald, and what's going on, lads? What are you doing? And instead of witnessing a Spartan withdrawal, he's witnessing Spartan generals arguing. This guy, Amorphitatus, apparently at one point picks up a rock. I'll vote. She said the Athenians vote with rocks. I'll show you. And he throws the rock on the ground or Pausanias his feet. He says, well, me and my men, we're not leaving. You can leave. We're not. We're Spartans. You're cowards. So it gets really confused at this point. So what's going on? The Athenians don't know what to do. The center has withdrawn out of sight. The Spartans, some of them are withdrawing, some are not, and they appear to be arguing. So the Athenians sort of budge right. They budge right to try and squeeze up next to the Spartans. So it goes like this. The other Greeks sort of peg it back. And I can almost like a picture. The Spartans sort of, some of them start to edge this way. But one small group, Amorphitatus as their commander, stays put. The Spartans withdraw a little bit and then stop to wait to see what's going on with these guys. The Athenians start to edge this way. It's all very confused and not looking very good for the Greeks. So at dawn, Mardonius can't believe his eyes. The Greek line, instead of being a big, long, solid line, instead of being all like this, the Greeks are all over the place. So he orders an attack. He orders everybody enter the attack. Sends his cavalry off to surround the various Greek contingents, pin them down, shell them with arrows, while his infantry force, his massive infantry force, moves up. There's an attack on the Athenians by the Thebans, and the Thebans have Medized. So the Thebans move across. And they attack head on into the Athenians. So you get a big hoplite battle happening over here. While these guys are charging around after the Spartans, the Persians move off. And then apparently these guys, without waiting for orders, pile in behind them. So when the Persians reach the Spartans, by this time the Spartans have, we think, already formed up. The two groups of Spartans are now one again. The Persians launch their normal attack, huge arrow storms. They're not going to get in close. Huge arrow storms. The Spartans, however, Pausanias here, is waiting for a sacrifice. Here's his army, suffering from the arrow storm, crouching under their shields, while he waits to see what this goat's entrails look like. Eventually they're going to attack, but not quite yet. The Tegeans, who are with the Spartans, they can't take it anymore. They charge into the attack. And finally, according to Herodotus, Pausanias gets the entrails that he wants. The seers say now it's time to attack, and they launch their attack on the Persians. At this point, Aristodemus comes into the argument, into the story. Remember him? What it's like in the movie 300, the guy with one eye. Remember, he was the trembler. He was accused of being a coward at Thermopylae and surviving. to rescue his honor. He charges out by himself and fights loads of Persians one-to-one, kills loads of them, he's killed himself. And after that, yeah, the Spartans admit he wasn't a coward. But he wasn't a great man because he left the phalanx. And then the actual battle takes place. As long as the Persians could do this, they're okay. But of course, as soon as the Spartans have closed with them, they smash their way through this shield wall. And a huge, desperate melee battle takes place. You know, what this says, we'll read it in the text. The Persians fight very bravely, especially for men with no armor and no helmets. They start breaking Spartan spears wherever they can. But here's Mardonius here, and eventually he is killed. He's hit by a stone. These guys here hitting with a stone, and he's killed. And the Persians rout, which means they run off. They retreat. They retreat to their fort, but they're immediately followed up by the rest of the Greeks. The fort is breached, and the slaughter continues, and a vast bulk of the Persian army is destroyed and killed. Let's go through that on here, shall we? So, Spartan army here manages to join in with the rest of them. These guys pull up. These guys retreat in order to replenish their arrow stocks. So they start showing arrows. Eventually, the Spartans attack. There's some fighting. The Thebans lose, and they peg it, chased by the Athenians. The Persians can't take it, and they start to retreat. But what holds them back? There are other guys in there behind them. They can't get away. So there's a huge slaughter. All accounts, a huge slaughter amongst the Persians. The ones that can escape into the fort, they get followed by this lot. We smash into the fort and kill most of them. That very basically, very quickly, is a battle of Plataea.